first place, come play with me. You want second place, go somewhere else.
Podcast City Network.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to episode 168 of the Nest Podcast. I'm the People's Champ, Brandon Brewer, and Zach is not with me tonight. He's on vacation this week. Fortunately, he was already getting out of town before the tornadoes and all that stuff decided to hit Missouri, so he was not involved with any of that. And he also missed out on all the inclement weather that was happening out on the West Coast this weekend. I know some of you guys probably saw Sunday Night Football and the torrential downpour that it was out there. Apparently there was a bomb cyclone and an atmospheric river, whatever that's supposed to mean. What it meant was a lot of rain for Sunday Night Football, and it definitely messed things up for the passing game. Zach, I know you're listening. I hope the rest of your vacation is great and you're back ready for Champ to Champ this coming Saturday night. But tonight I am joined by a good friend of the show, someone that you guys have probably seen over on the Sportszilla Podcast, and that's Mr. Ryan Gaskin. Ryan, welcome into the show. How you doing tonight?
Oh, doing good, man. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be out here.
Thank you for coming on. You know, it was funny. I was just talking to you before we went live about how I'm not really used to running the show without Zach going live and doing all that stuff. And of course, I started out with the wrong intro song. So yeah, we're off to a great start already.
It'll be fun. I think it'll be enjoyable.
Yeah, well, like I said, I appreciate you being on here, and I think it will be pretty good. I'm excited to have you on. Go ahead and let the listeners know a little bit about the Sportszilla Podcast and where they can find that first and foremost.
Yeah, so you can hop on over to Sportszilla Podcast. We're gonna, anytime you see us, we're gonna talk about sports, stats. I'm not gonna lie to you. We kind of stick to football, maybe some basketball, baseballs. We're figuring out baseball and hockey to bring everybody else into it. And you can find us. You can go over to Facebook, find our page there, Twitter. You can find us on, Podbean? Man, I can't even remember everywhere. I know Jared does all the posting of it and everything. You can find wherever you listen to your podcast, you can go on over and download us. We're on there.
Yeah, and you guys are doing really well. You've only been podcasting now for about, 2 months or so?
Say
somewhere in there.
Start of the football season.
Yeah, and it's been good. You guys have already made leaps and bounds from where we were at the 2-month mark, and I've enjoyed watching it and enjoyed following along and commenting with you guys. But you did mention baseball, and you're trying to figure out how to get the baseball going and all that stuff. I know you're more of a baseball fan than Jared is, so it's a little bit difficult when one of you is a fan and the other not so much. But on this show, we do like to talk about baseball, and perfect time to be here because we have the World Series upon us. Who do you cheer for in baseball, if you don't mind?
Marlins fan. So
Marlin.
It's a rough, 18 years, I think, 17 years watching the Marlins. And usually once they do good, they decide to wipe the whole slate because it didn't work and start over again.
Yeah, the Marlins, they are an interesting franchise. They've never won a pennant, but they've got, 2 World Series titles under their belt. And it seems like when they win a World Series, they sell off all their pieces in the next year or two.
You just nailed it. The summary of the Marlins organization right there.
Yeah, that's pretty much the summary of a small market franchise, really. That's what they have to do to survive is they can't afford to pay these guys. I mean, what was it? Giancarlo Stanton got a huge deal, and then they were like, oh, we can't afford to pay this guy. So they shipped him off to New York, where he's not really done much for them. But
yep. I've seen it a lot over the years. You see players come out of the farm systems that the Marlins have, and good guys, and then once they come up to a contract, the Marlins aren't going to pay them the big money, and you get to go watch them play in Boston or in New York or some big market team, and it's like, well, we had it for a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. I guess Yelich was the last big name to leave. I live in Jacksonville, Florida, and we have the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp in my town. And that's the AAA affiliate of the Miami Marlins. So I get to go and watch some of your minor league guys play pretty routinely, and I get to catch some of the major league guys there when they're on rehab assignments or whatnot. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, I followed the Marlins a little bit because of going to those games, and that they are one of those franchises that I wish that they would get it all together, because it would be great to see some superstar talent come through Jacksonville. But it is what it is. World Series. World Series is upon us. Of course, it's going to be the Atlanta Braves and the Houston Astros. The Astros making it back to the World Series for the third time in 5 years.
Yeah,
And this is
pretty
that's pretty phenomenal. You know, they've got a pretty great track record. The only postseason accolades I can think of recently that are even better than that are that of the Dodgers, who were knocked off in the NLCS. With them, I've got to think that, you know, maybe it's going to be the end of the road for their manager, Dave Roberts. You know, he's gotten them there. He's won a World Series, but they always seem to fall a little bit short. I don't know. I think they might part ways at the end of during this offseason.
Yeah, that tends to be even other sports. That tends to be the thing. If you've got the team that can do it and the talent, and you're paying the money for it, you start looking at coaching to see what's happening if that's not working out every time. And of course, you can make it to the playoffs and you can make it, you know, maybe all the way, but you're not winning the World Series, and that's the line of success right there. So you eventually got to look for a change somewhere.
Yep, I agree, and I think that's an organization that's primed and ready for a change. They need some kind of spark, and the manager position is probably where that's going to come from. But let's not take away from the Braves or Astros any longer. These are two teams that they made it to the World Series, and they deserve to be there. Let's see. We've got a comment coming in. Braves have fought and fought and fought. One more series won't hurt, right? Yeah. I think I've seen all the memes floating around that pretty much the entire country is cheering for the Atlanta Braves, except for a small little speck in Houston area that are for the Astros. But what do you think? Do you think the Braves have a chance to go up against this juggernaut from the AL?
I mean, they're the hot team coming in, right? They ended the season on the right way. They came out firing, even though, I mean, Houston's a good team. I think both teams, they hit the ball well. They've got power where they need it. What is it? Houston's missing one of their pitchers, if I remember correctly. I can't remember exactly his name.
Yeah, Lance McCullers.
Yep, he's out, so maybe that hurts a bit. Both teams have a bullpen. It's hard to tell. It's hard to see if a hot team's going to keep going on that streak. Maybe, you know, the couple days off is what ruins it. But if I'm part of that crowd that's rooting for Atlanta, along with the rest of the country. I think after what happened in 17, right? That's
Yep.
the whole scandal that went down in Houston. I don't think anybody's ever rooting for Houston again, other than maybe the absolute faithful. And I'm on board with it. It's been since 99, since the Braves have been back to that. So I think it'll be exciting. I live in Tennessee. I'm from the South. Everybody down here is out of their minds right now that Atlanta's doing this. So I can work with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's been 96 was the last time that they won the World Series. But it's been a long time regardless. They haven't won since 2000. And in fact, if they do win the World Series this year, and there's a big if there, but if they do, then that would mean 15 out of the 30 MLB franchises would have won a World Series since the year 2000. No other sport comes close to having that kind of a percentage of a title share.
Yeah, that's a pretty wild stat. And knowing, you know, baseball's a long sport and it's a long season, and doing that every single year, even if you are, you know, the team to beat, is tough to do. And you can see that how, you know, teams, it's not same team every year coming out. You may make it to the playoffs again, but it doesn't mean you're going to make it all the way.
Right. Absolutely. I think there's been 18, 19 years or something since there's been a repeat champion. So it's been a long time since we've even seen a back-to-back in Major League Baseball. I do hope that the Braves pull it out. You mentioned the pitching. Both of these teams have had the best pitching in their respective leagues since the start of the playoffs.
Yep.
The Braves pitching kind of came out of nowhere because 2 months ago rather, they were a little bit shaky in the bullpen. People were questioning if they were even going to make the playoffs because of how shaky they were getting. But they've pulled it all together, and they've had a pretty lights out pitching staff and a pretty solid bullpen. And the Astros, they had a few hiccup games against the Red Sox. I thought the Red Sox may be able to pull it out, but they didn't. They ran into a buzzsaw of a pitching rotation in games. What was it, 5 and 6? They basically got shut down because of starting pitching was so phenomenal. And that's what you need in the playoffs. It doesn't matter how good of an offense you have. Any pitcher can go out there and just shut you down. That gives that team a huge boost.
Yeah, and it gives the bats something to stand on too. If your pitcher's out there just battling and blanking the other team, you want to go out there and hit a couple for them and actually keep the game going and win it for them. To me, I look at the bullpens, and I think that's where it matters because both teams hit so well and they've got the power to do it. Those bullpens, both of them, I think that's where you're going to see the star come out. Maybe whoever can get those mid to late inning stops for the team and then put in the closer, hopefully, and shut out the team at the end of it is the big deal on what I'm thinking for the World Series. I think it'll be fun though.
Yeah,
I think this one go in 7 games.
You think 7?
I think so.
It could very well. Houston has the home field advantage, so it would shift to them with that advantage in Game 7. But who do you think walks away as the World Series champion? Go ahead and give your prediction now.
I think the Braves can do it.
You think the Braves in 7?
I think the Braves take it in 7, and I think they'll actually be some pretty exciting games. I think baseball's needed this. You can see the young stars have been coming out recently and bringing more notoriety to the game, and I think a series like this where you got 2 teams that can hit the ball and pitchers that can take care of business makes it a lot more interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I do wish Ronald Acuna Jr. was going to be in the lineup for the Atlanta Braves. Talking about young stars, he is one of those guys that he needs to be force-fed to the general audience that doesn't really consume baseball on a nightly basis. He's the type of guy that you want to have out there if you're Major League Baseball, but he's ultimately injured. He's on the shelf for the season. You'll see him in the dugout cheering on his team, but it is a shame we don't get to see him on the field. I'm also going to say the Braves pull this one out, except I'm going to say they do it in 6. Ooh. I think they're going to finish it in Atlanta in Game 6.
Okay, I like that. I think I don't know. There's also like a nice little tease on the teams that they've actually got players that have either played against each other, from different teams, different eras, or played against their own team, and they're back at it. So maybe they've got some notes or something that they know that the team's going to do, and they can use to their advantage. There's a lot of familiarity going on between the two of them.
Yeah. I'm very happy for Freddie Freeman. Of all people that are on the Atlanta Braves team, that's one guy that I am happy with. He has a lot of familiarity with the Astros just because he's been in the league for 11 years now.
Yep.
And he's played every season with the Atlanta Braves. This is his first World Series, obviously. He's acting like a kid in the Little League World Series right now because every time you see him, he's got a huge smile on his face. He's having a good time. I'm excited for that guy.
It's awesome when you see a story like that too. Someone who's just kind of, I don't want to say stuck it out with them or anything, but he's sticking with the team and he's going to go with it, and finally gets to the World Series and gets the opportunity to be the king of the mountain there in baseball.
I think it's absolutely fair to say that he stuck it out with them because he could have left in free agency and went somewhere else. Just like we were talking about with your Marlins, like he could have said, okay, I'm ready for my payday. I'm going to go to LA with the Dodgers, or I'm going to go out to San Diego, because around the time that he was a free agent was around the time that Eric Hosmer was signed as the first baseman of the Padres. So he could have got that, $240 million contract with the Padres, but he chose to stay in Atlanta. He saw good things coming from the farm system, and I hope he gets him a ring this year.
Like I said, I think it'll be an exciting series. It's I don't want to say it's been a long time since I've watched the World Series through and through and like not paid attention, but I feel like I've got more in it this year. Like I want to actually like stick through it and watch every single game, every single pitch, like that type of mentality.
And when you host a sports podcast, it's kind of your job to keep up with at least the major sports that are going on.
Yeah, I agree.
That being said, let's talk a little bit about week 7. The name of this episode this week is Upsets and Blowouts. And we saw a lot of those this week in the NFL. Starting with the Bengals blowing out the Ravens. The final score in that one was 41-17. Joe Burrow went out there balling. Jamar Chase went out there balling. Since week 1, this dude's been exceeding everyone's expectations. And is it too soon to say that he is the front runner for Rookie of the Year?
No, I don't think so. Just looking at all the other rookies playing as well. Somehow, high pick. He went to a team that's actually. Oh, Jared, there. He went to a team that actually he can benefit on really well. A lot of familiarity with Joe Burrow as well, and
Yep.
I think that helps out. He didn't go to a team that's last in the division, maybe wins 1 or 2 games. So he's being used, and man, he looks good out there. Joe Burrow could throw the ball up, and that man's going to catch it and take it to the house.
Oh, I agree. And I was one of those people that was questioning the draft pick of Jamar Chase, where they picked him, because I was like, man, they already have at the time AJ Green. They already have Tyler Boyd. They have T. Higgins. They've got good wide receivers. They've got Joe Mixon. They need an offensive line. They need to protect this kid. But boy, was I wrong about Jamar Chase, because he's came in and he's added so much to that offense. I guess maybe they knew that AJ Green wasn't going to be there, or that they needed to replace him at some point. And Jamar Chase, he's been the man. And I thought last season, Justin Jefferson, also out of LSU, could have been the Rookie of the Year, but it ultimately went to Justin Herbert. I don't think anybody out there rookie-wise can knock Jamar Chase off of that right now.
No, it just doesn't look like it. He's out there. I mean, the numbers he's throwing up are ridiculous. They're Randy Moss numbers, basically, which once you're in that type of category, you're doing something right.
I mean, that's what we saw from Jefferson last year too, which is so surprising that like we're seeing it back-to-back years from these LSU receivers. LSU has turned into like a wide receiver factory. Of course, yet to be seen with the recent transactions down there in the Bayou, but we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens coming out of there after this year and what continues to roll on. But I like watching Cincinnati. I'm excited to watch them play football.
Yeah, and everybody in the comments is talking about that the Bengals are the best team in that division. They're the most surprising team of the entire year and stuff like that. I wouldn't say they're the most surprising, because a lot of people saw this coming. Joe Burrow, before his injury last year, he was looking phenomenal. He was looking like the Rookie of the Year before he got hurt.
That's what I was about to say. I think maybe he takes Rookie of the Year if he spends the whole season in there throwing the football the way he was, and obviously he's shown it this year.
Yeah, he's the real deal, and Cincinnati's got a good one in him for sure. And wow, if they go on, win this AFC North division, and make a run in the playoffs, then people in Cincinnati and those Cincinnati fans that have been loyal for all of these years, they're finally going to have something to celebrate.
Yeah, and I mean, a rough division to do it in. If they were to go and take the division, that's a tough slate of teams you're going to play up against every 4-6 games they have to play against their rivals, and if they took that, that'd be big turnaround.
Because they've got the Browns, the Steelers, and the Ravens. Six out of your 16 games or whatever it is. So that is a tough schedule, no matter who you are. Another one of these games that was, maybe not necessarily an upset, because I think both teams are kind of on even kill, but it was a bit of a blowout, and that's the Giants swatting the Panthers.
Ah, man.
Final score in that one, 25-3. The Panthers barely showed up. I know you're a Panthers fan, so as a fan, what are your thoughts about the state of Panther Nation right now?
I mean, it should put a sign onto what Christian McCaffrey's worth to an organization, that he made Sam Darnold look the way he was looking, and now Sam Darnold's kind of sitting out there looking lost and making bad decisions.
He looks like the Sam Darnold that was in New York for the past year or so, 2 years.
Yep. And then I almost feel like the defense is kind of I don't want to say giving up, but they're up against a tough play where, their team's going 3 and out and their defense is on the field for quite some time. Eventually, you got to wear it down. So it's tough to watch, and hopefully McCaffrey gets back and maybe they start making some plays. Sam Darnold looks a little better, but right now it's looking like maybe Sam Darnold wasn't the right choice, which is funny because 3 weeks into the season, everyone was like, "Oh man, Sam Darnold's the man," and now we're seeing what not having Christian McCaffrey out there looks like.
That is a good point with CMC. What is the timetable on his return? Do you know?
I know they threw him back on the IR last week because originally he wasn't going on it. They said maybe a couple weeks, and then they threw him on there. So you're looking at 3 more weeks till he can come back.
Yeah, wow. Maybe he is valuable to the organization. Don't get me wrong, and he is probably the most valuable Panther. But when it comes time to pay these running backs, is this the example people are going to throw in people's face? Like, hey, we don't want to give you the entire house because look at what happens with Christian McCaffrey. He's hurt 2 years in a row now, and that's not a good precedence to have.
Yeah, this is actually a talk me and Jared have all the time about paying running backs, and eventually that running back, they're not getting any younger, and when you put that much into one player, it's a lot to take when that person gets injured on a regular basis. I saw a lot of memes coming out about maybe Christian McCaffrey's the Todd Gurley now, got paid, can't play, but it's just rough to see him get hurt. And then, a lot of these injuries he takes are little nagging injuries that just kind of sit forever. I mean, hamstring's not fun to deal with anyways, especially someone as explosive as he is.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it is a conversation that Zach and I have also. You pay these guys and you sit a significant percentage of your salary onto one guy's shoulders that one doesn't leave enough to spread the wealth around. And if that one guy goes out, then, you shot yourself in the foot. With the Panthers, it's interesting. They have not really looked good since that Cowboys game. They went into Dallas and they were undefeated at the time. And since that loss, they have not looked the same. So I don't know what happened in Dallas, but it needs to get fixed. Jared's commenting in here talking about Deshaun Watson possibly going to Carolina. And of course, that has been one of the big rumors around the NFL this week. And it's worth noting that he's also a Dolphins fan, and the other team that's being linked to Deshaun Watson right now are the Miami Dolphins. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you embrace and welcome Deshaun in, or is that something that you would rather stay away from?
As a fan, I'd rather stay away from it. You don't know what's going to happen in that situation. You don't even know if he gets traded. If maybe Goodell just puts him on the Goodell list, as I like to call it, and says he's not playing until everything's done. So you're taking a big risk and a lot of money on someone that, there is definite upside if he can play football and he's allowed to play football and all this goes away or whatever happens with it. But if he can't play, you're putting a lot of money in someone that can't do anything for your organization. I don't think it's worth it then.
No, I agree too. It is hard to, as a fan, be like, yeah, bring that guy in. Let's trade the farm away. I'm a baseball guy. That's a term in baseball. Trade the farm away. Trade all of your future picks for this guy that you don't even know. His court hearing isn't until February. If he's sentenced to several years in jail, then he's obviously not going to be part of your organization at that point. And you just traded 3 first-round draft picks in the next 3-4 years away. That's not a good way to build your team up.
That's a lot to give up for someone that might not do something.
Right, absolutely. Hot take, he won't play for Carolina or Miami. Well, then I don't think that he's going to get traded then, because those are the only 2 teams that I really have seen a strong link to. And it's the only reason that the Dolphins are being mentioned in that, because they just took their what was supposed to be franchise quarterback a couple years ago, and he is not panning out to be the guy that they thought that he was. In fact, the Dolphins have lost in back-to-back weeks by field goals, so not looking so good there in Dolphin land. Another one of those blowout wins that we got to see this weekend was the Patriots absolutely destroying the New York Jets. This was a game that was only a game for about 5 minutes in the first quarter, and then the Patriots started running away with it. Of course, we mentioned pre-show Zach Wilson getting injured. That was kind of a big blow to the Jets. They weren't ever able to really get the offense going. Because of that, my fantasy team was thriving because I have the Patriots defense, and they got a couple picks. They got some sacks, and they were scoring points for me. So I do appreciate that. And I appreciate a huge win, but it was a statement game for Mack Jones. It was his first career game where he threw over 300 yards, and he went out there and got comfortable throwing the ball. And this is the type of game that the Patriots needed so that he could go out there, sling the ball all over the field, and get confidence.
Yep, I agree with you there. The Jets, they look like the Jets. It's hard to say much for them that's good. And with Wilson going down, it makes it even worse. Now you've got backup quarterbacks coming in to do a job that they're not ready to do. But like you said, I think this was perfect for the Patriots. This is a confidence booster in a team that I feel like's at a breaking point. You know, they maybe they turn out and they turn into a team that nobody expected, a big surprise, or you know they go into this game and they look horrendous and the season's just down the drain from there. So it helped. Man, I can't remember his name right now. Mack Jones. Also, what's his name? Harris. Huge game running the ball. I've got him in fantasy, and he's been sitting on my bench because it hasn't really been fantastic. I made the mistake of not playing him this week, and I'm pretty sad I didn't because he looked pretty good, and he looks like a running back that now that they need running the ball, and it'll help out Mack Jones if they've got someone that they can constantly have pounding the defense.
Yeah, and Damian Harris is a dude that his fantasy stock really went up whenever Sonny Michel got traded and then James White got injured early in the season. So it's taken him a few weeks to kind of mold into that RB1, but he's finally starting to get there. And Jared kind of stole my thunder in the comments by saying the breaking news, but it was announced about an hour ago or so that the Jets have traded for former Super Bowl MVP Joe Flacco from the Eagles. The trade is for a conditional 6th round pick that may become a 5th round pick depending on his play this season. So they have brought in somebody new to, I guess, take over for when Wilson's out. They're expecting him to be out for a lengthy amount of time at this point.
Yeah, I think they said PCL injury, and I haven't checked up today to see what the MRI revealed, but it definitely looked like they were trying to find someone. In my mind, I thought, man, about old Cam Newton, maybe possibly getting some playing time, going to New York and possibly helping out. But Joe Flacco going there, I don't know if that helps, honestly.
Jared's breaking more news saying that Flacco gets hurt in the first half of his first start, a la Nick Foles down in the Jacksonville Jaguars offense. That would be terrible. I'd hate to see anybody get hurt, but if anybody's going to do it, it's the Jets offensive line. Yep. Another one of those upsets that I think everybody is talking about today is the Titans upsetting the Kansas City Chiefs. This was a game that I don't think any of us saw coming. We all do our weekly pick-ems, and most of us pick along the same lines, and I think we all had the Chiefs winning this one. And to look up and see the scoreboard and see that it's 27-3 for a final score in favor of the Tennessee Titans, it was definitely the shock of the week. What did you think as you were seeing these highlights roll out?
So I actually missed the first 3 quarters of the early games driving on Sunday, and I get home, turn on the TV, and I was just like, oh crap! I thought this would definitely be maybe a shootout, maybe something where a high offensive game because Tennessee's defense really hasn't looked amazing at all. But to me, there's some issues in Kansas City, and I feel like something needs to be addressed. They remind me of like a dynasty team in fantasy football where one year you did good and you never made any upgrades to continue going and, maybe change the game plan a little bit to stay on top. And that's kind of what it looks like this year where they're trying to use the same mold and maybe it's not working. They got to make some changes and figure something out.
And Zach and I talked about it a few weeks ago. Should we credit the Tampa Bay Bucks for figuring out Mahomes and that offense, because since that Super Bowl, they have not looked good. Brandon Janis over here saying the year that he has Mahomes in fantasy, it just happens to be his worst year ever. Yeah, and a lot of people are saying that too, dude. A lot of people are thinking like, man, why did I jump up in the third round and take this guy? Because he sucks. Yeah. It happens. But if you did listen to C2C this past Saturday night, I told you that Ryan Tannehill was going to be a good start. This week we had a lot of bye weeks, and a lot of people were asking me who they should plug in for their starting quarterback, and Ryan Tannehill was always one of those options that they were throwing out there. Playing against the Chiefs defense is a good opportunity for a quarterback to get right. He also had A.J. Brown and Julio Jones back in the offense. Oh, and Derrick Henry can sling some touchdowns too, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, he's out throwing Patrick Mahomes in a football game for touchdowns, so that's pretty wild. The football kind of looks like a candy bar in his hand, though, the way he throws it. It's just so small in comparison to his size.
He is such a huge dude.
It's not fun. I know it's got to be just daunting when you're a DB back there and he's already pushed through 7-8 yards and he's at full speed and you're the guy that has to stop him.
Yeah, I always think of who was Josh Norman. Yep. Whenever he tried to tackle him and he just got stiff-armed and became that instant meme.
Yep, I think DBs took that to light because me and Jared, I think, talked about it one of the games. I forget when it was. It looks like they're almost not even squaring up on him. They're just trying to get a quick angle that could possibly knock him down so they don't get beat up.
Yep, chop his legs out. That's the only way you get that tree to fall.
Yep.
Man, anything else you want to say about that game before we move on? I mean, it was a shocker, but where do the Chiefs go from here,
I don't know, because it's hard when you're, I'm not saying Patrick Mahomes isn't good because he is. He's a fantastic quarterback. He got paid for a reason, and their offense is good. But it's hard to be good when the defense knows you have to put up 40 points to win a football game.
Absolutely.
It's not helpful. And I think that's what we're seeing.
And we talked about the AFC North being a tough division. That AFC West is pretty tough too. Yeah. The Chargers and the Raiders, they're both pretty solid teams right now.
Yep. The old magical Raiders out there. I love watching them right now. Derek Carr is just balling out there throwing the football.
He don't need no coach. And of course, the last big blowout of the week was the Tampa Bay Bucks, who absolutely own the Chicago Bears. Turns out Brady and Aaron Rodgers own the Chicago Bears, and Brady got his 600th career pass. So, or passing touchdown rather. So pretty good week for TB12. The Bucks, they still look like the team to beat. Doesn't matter. Antonio Brown wasn't in the lineup. Gronk's still not in the lineup. Doesn't matter. No problem. They still go out there, sling the ball all over the field. Mike Williams had a huge day. Chris Godwin had a good day. That they look like they are the champs.
Yeah, it's hard to go up against that right now. I feel like Tom Brady has played for so long. He knows every team so well that it looks like he just goes out there and he knows what that team's going to put up against him. And he's got the weapons to go, sling the ball around and throw it to exactly whoever he wants to, when he wants to. And, I mean, he's got Leonard Fournette back there catching footballs, and that man's the stone hands of earth just running around, finally catching footballs out of the backfield, helping him out.
It's ridiculous. That Leonard Fournette was cut by the Jacksonville Jaguars. Just let go. And he goes on to become the Leonard Fournette that we saw at LSU whenever he links up with Tom Brady. It's been phenomenal to see for him, but it's scary whenever you realize like they got this dude for nothing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's paying off. I heard the story where Bruce Arians kind of sat him down and was like, hey, you're either part of this team or you're not. And since then, from what I understand and watching it, he's fully bought in and he's being the guy that needs to be. He's RB1 and he's going to do what he has to do to keep the team going.
Yep, absolutely. And he's balling. He earned the nickname Playoff Lenny. And, Antonio Brown, same story. He was basically sat down and told that same thing, like, hey, you're either with us or you're not. And he goes out there and he's been looking like Antonio Brown from the Pittsburgh Steelers a few years ago. He's looking fantastic. So they are a scary team.
The Bears are that's a rough team to watch right now.
It is. I
I
do
don't
feel
know
bad for our listeners that are Bears fans. I know we have a few. Jose, sorry, sir. I know I know you're probably heartbroken, but the Bears, they are miserable.
Yeah, and Justin Fields just looks like the game is moving so much faster than he can comprehend at this moment. And the play calling's not working for him. The offense isn't set up for him, and I feel like we're going to see maybe a Matt Nagy out at the end of the year type of situation. Maybe it's before they keep losing like this. I don't think he's going to make it to the end of the year.
That's a real possibility that he could be shown the door and we would have an interim for the rest of the season. And it's so funny that you said that the game is so fast for Justin Fields because he had that quote in the preseason where he said, "Oh, it's slow. The game's slow for me." That's going to come back to haunt you, young man.
Yep.
All right. So one of the other things that we like to do on this show, Ryan, is we like to talk about fantasy football. Of course, we have our Saturday night show, Champ to Champ, where Zach and I lay out the startums and situms, and we talk about who we think is going to be the best locks at the positions and stuff like that. So we like to kind of caveat on that on Monday nights and talk about the booms and busts for the week. And, I told you a little bit offline about what kind of criteria I normally look for. For me, starting with the quarterback, my boom for the week is Mack Jones. This is a quarterback that averages 14.2 points a week. This week, he had 22.18. He threw for 307 yards. It's his first career 300-yard performance. He had 2 touchdowns and, most importantly, 0 interceptions. He's making smart passes, and now he's starting to throw the ball down the field. It's a beautiful thing for the New England Patriots.
Yeah, I can't even argue with you. I think I had him at one point, and I sat him down and didn't pick him back up. Put him out on the trade market. Someone's got him now in one of my leagues. But he's fun to watch. I like what he's doing. Smart guy with the ball. It's going to help him out big time.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, you want a boom for me?
Yeah, let's hear who boomed for you this week.
I'm going to go with Jalen Hurts. He's been pretty consistent throughout the year, but I think that's the big boom part of it is that Philly does not. I don't want to say they don't look good because they do score points and he gets on the board fantasy wise. I don't know what's happening that they're losing games nonstop. I haven't really watched Philly that much, but Jalen Hurts for where you're picking Jalen Hurts up at, and I mean I've been in leagues where some people don't even have him. You can pick him up off the street. He's going to put in solid performances week after week, and just keep you up there in the quarterback position.
Yeah, no, I'm one of the few people that I was and I still am very high on Jalen Hurts. When he was coming out of Oklahoma, I was campaigning for him to get drafted to the New England Patriots. I thought that he fit with that system that they were building there. They were moving towards that new young quarterback style, the dual threat. They've got the Patriots have an offensive line pretty much from the University of Georgia, who they're known for run blocking. And that's why I thought when Cam Newton went there that he would fit in well. But, that's a tired song.
Yep.
But Jalen Hurts is the type of guy that he could be plugged in and be electric no matter where he goes. And he's proven that in Philadelphia. And it looks like their big problem, just looking at some box scores real quick, is the score. They give up way too many points. They've got a few weeks, 3 or 4 weeks, where they've given up 30 to 40 points. That you're not going to win a lot of games if you're giving up that much.
No, look at the Chiefs. It's not helping.
Yep. It's the same situation in Philly. That's a good boom for the week, though. I think Jalen Hurts, he is one of those guys that he's always going to be consistent, but he does have weeks where he will really run the score out for you. I think we probably both will have the same bust of the week because everybody that has a fantasy has noticed this one, and that's Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is a dude that averages 23.1 points a game. This week, he only gave you 7.74. He threw for 206 yards, 0 touchdowns for, I think, the first time in his entire career. And he had 1 interception and 1 fumble.
Yeah. Tough. And we saw the comment earlier, like, first year I've got Mahomes and now he's doing this. like we said, it's tough when the defense knows you need to score 40 points. It's tough to actually do that. So it's going to be a hard year for him if that defense doesn't help him out and actually stop the other team somewhat.
Yeah, I agree. Patrick Mahomes, he needs a little bit of help. It seems like defenses have figured out how to defend against their offensive style. And, I think the loss of Clyde Edwards-Helaire hurts a lot more than people are giving it credit for.
Yeah, just having that solid running back there you can count on. It definitely hurts, and that's actually I'll bring up my bust for the week, and he started off great, and now it's looking worse and worse. It's same mentality though. Sam Darnold, he was coming out beginning of the year and just not only throwing the ball because he threw the ball well and had touchdowns, but he's running the ball in like a champion and lost CMC. Not having him back there to help out really has ruined his fantasy time. And you're not seeing him played very much here on out until they see some upside for him.
Yeah, didn't Sam have 5 rushing touchdowns in like the first 3 weeks of the season or something
Oh,
like
yeah.
that?
He was moving the ball in there easily and efficiently.
Yeah, wow. And a lot changes whenever you lose that stud running back, that's for sure. Speaking of running backs, there are some that shine this week and others that didn't. One of my boom running backs for the week is a guy that I actually played against in fantasy, and that's Deandre Swift. Dude averages 19.6 points a game, which is still pretty good, even if he hits his average. But this week he dropped 28.4. He only had 48 rushing yards, but where his value comes into play is he was 8 of 10 receiving for 96 yards and a touchdown. Dual threat running back is the wave of the future. Guys like Swift, Austin Eckler, Alvin Kamara, CMC, these running backs that can also be glorified wide receivers, slot wide receivers. Those are the guys that really rack up the points in fantasy.
Yeah, I agree with you there. That's exactly who I was going to say, actually. just watching the game, man, he's doing everything for him that he can. He feels like, to me, for the Lions, he feels like the Matt Stafford that's there now. He's doing whatever he can to try to help the Lions out, and it's going, but it's not going well.
Yeah. The Lions are just one of those teams that they're not really going to be able to figure it out, at least not this year, at least not anytime in the future. I don't think that Jared Goff is going to right the ship there. So they have a lot of down years, in my opinion, coming up.
Yep, I'll agree with you there. A boom I got for running back, although he didn't have as high of a week as he normally does. I'll give the weather to that one for him. But Jonathan Taylor there out of Indianapolis still had over 100 yards in that game, still had a touchdown. And he's, to me, helping Carson Wentz out big time because Carson Wentz, I feel like, is a maniac playing football. And he's got at least someone that can hand the ball off and get some yards.
Did you see that interception where Wentz just kind of like flipped it forward and right into the arms of the defender? It's funny you mentioned that game with your boom because I agree. Jonathan Taylor, he's phenomenal. He is probably one of the running backs that's going to be the next wave of superstar talent at that position. But my bust also comes from the Indianapolis Colts, and that's Naim Heinz. This is a guy that, as an RB2, he should be doing a little bit more. He only averages 6.4 points a game in fantasy. Last night, he had 2.2. He had 14 yards rushing, and he had 1 reception for -2 yards. He also dropped a wide open pass that he could have taken to the end zone for about 40 or 50 yards. It went right through his hands. Maybe the wet conditions had something to do with that, but if it hits you in your hands, especially with those gloves on, you should be able to catch it.
Oh, yeah. That's what I was going to bring up the second you said his name. I was like, I feel like anybody who's played sports before, I'm not an NFL player, so I don't know that feeling, but he was wide open. Like there was nothing stopping him other than himself. So tough break on that one. And it's going to be hard for him behind Jonathan Taylor to be any type of productive in the running back position compared to Jonathan Taylor next to him.
And what's interesting is they also have Marlon Mack, who they have as their third string running back. And a few years ago, he had back-to-back 1,000-yard rushing seasons. that's a dude that can still get it done. You know, he did have a pretty significant injury, and that's what opened the door for Jonathan Taylor. But if I'm the Colts, I'm getting rid of Heinz, and I'm running with Taylor and Marlon Mack as my two featured backs.
Yep, maybe give Heinz some show money, let him look good a little bit, and a team that needs a running back, you can get something back for him that maybe make it worth it.
And we got a commenter saying that Miles Sanders was a bust for him as well as Mahomes. Yeah, we already talked about Mahomes a little bit.
Sanders went out with an injury, right?
I believe so, yeah. So it's kind of unfair to say that he was a bust, but I get it, though. As a fantasy owner, whenever you don't see the big points skyrocketing, it gets a little annoying for you.
Oh, yeah. The worst thing you could see is a hamstring, and you're like, oh, I don't know if he's going to play good next week or not. You never know what's going to happen with that.
Do you have any other running back busts before we move on?
Yes, I do. Antonio Gibson out of the Washington football team. He's on one of my teams, and I was super excited to get him. Spent big for him because everybody was saying go for it, and it really hasn't played out to be much. And I don't know if that's a product of just the Washington football team in general. They haven't looked fantastic, but they're still scoring points, and Heineke's still moving the ball up and down the field. So, what's his name? Man, I can't remember the RB2 there. McKinnon?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Seems to be taking more of the game, and also there's a lot of passing situations that Washington's in because they're playing from behind, so it's not helping.
That's exactly what I was going to say too. Is whenever your defense, as lackluster as the Washington football team's defense has been, they play from behind a lot, which means they have to throw the ball a lot to try to catch up. And guys like McLaren are killing it in fantasy football because of it. So it is what it is. Moving on to wide receivers, we talked about him earlier. Jamar Chase has to be my boom of the week. This dude averages 20.9 points a week, which is still phenomenal. I take that every week if I'm a fantasy owner. This week, he got you 34.1. He was 8 of 10 receiving for 201 yards and a tug. This dude, he's doing it week in and week out, as that 20.9 average indicates, but he can still go out there and just boom.
Yeah, I'll agree with you there. There's nothing you could say wrong about him. He's catching everything that's thrown out there to him, and he's making big plays with Joe Burrow out there and taking care of business. Boom for me. I was going to say, you said it before, the Terry McLaurin. It seems to be week after week, like you said. They're playing from behind. They need big scores. They need big plays, and he seems to be doing the job for them and taking care of that. I'm not going to say coming out of nowhere because there was lots of talk about him in the offseason, but he's looking good on a team that is not looking good.
Yep. Absolutely. And one of our commenters brought up Mike Evans, and I do want to highlight him too. He had a fantastic game for the Bucs. 6 receptions for 76 yards, 3 touchdowns. That anytime you have multiple touchdowns, you're going to see your fantasy points skyrocket. He was definitely the red zone target for TB12, and he caught the 600th touchdown and then gave it to a fan. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did. There was lots of talk about it because they got the ball back. And I don't think the fan got much out of it. I think they said like $1,000 gift card to the team store, and I was like, that ball is worth 6 figures.
Oh yeah, there some experts are saying that ball could have been worth $750,000, and he settled for $1,000 in concessions and another ball to replace it, and I think a jersey or something, a signed jersey.
I imagine his friends let him know how much of a mistake that was. I don't think he was going to get out of the stadium with it anyways, but he could have probably worked something better out.
Yeah, I guess he said that his big want that he wanted out of the whole thing, and may still come to fruition, was that he wanted to play a round of golf with Tom Brady.
You never know; it might happen.
I mean, Tom does some pretty cool stuff off the field. We'll see if it happens. I'm sure we'll hear about it because it's going to be the news cycle for a while. We got people saying, "What a sucker!" Yeah, I agree, Jim. Let's see. You gave your wide receiver boom. What about a bust? Do you have a wide receiver bust? I'm
going to go with Julio this week. I know he's coming in with the hamstring, so you don't know what to expect out of him. But off the offense that Tennessee had that game, I think it's pretty amazing that he didn't do too much. You kind of expect more. Who knows? I sometimes it's week to week with him. Brown's the target one week, he's the target the next week, and that's how it's going to work out. Someone's going to get double teamed.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's how it is. I actually had Julio as my pick too. He's a guy that on the season has averaged 9.4 points in fantasy. Yesterday he got you 5.8. He only had two receptions for 38 yards. The Chiefs defense is atrocious and they give up big yards and big points to wide receivers left and right. Yep. Somehow, some way, this freak athlete Julio Jones can't find a way to get open against him.
Exactly. That's how I felt about it. I actually started him in one of my leagues, and I benched Damian Harris. I switched him right before the game started, and when I got home in the third quarter, I was like, well, that was a poor choice.
Yeah, another wide receiver that's been a bust for a lot of the season is Henry Ruggs III.
Yep.
This is a dude that he's playing on an offense that's pretty prolific. They throw the ball a lot. I know Hunter Renfrow has eaten up a lot of targets, and but yesterday without Darren Waller, I expected Henry Ruggs to have a much bigger game than what he did. He averages 10.9 points on the season. Yesterday, he only posted 7.1. He had 4 receptions for 24 yards. Not really that much to talk about.
No, he's especially the way Derek Carr's been playing. Like Derek Carr was unstoppable last night playing football, and he doesn't seem to see much of it. He seems to be a home run threat is what it is week to week. He might get you that 40, 50-yard catch for a touchdown and help you out, but he should have more.
Yeah, absolutely. He's one of those guys that you're just like, come on, do something.
Yep.
But oh well. That's it. That's it for our booms and busts. Appreciate you having some of those guys to throw in here. It's fun to talk fantasy football because it's one area of the game where we can all kind of feel like, hey, we know what we're talking about. We're the experts here. Tonight on Monday Night Football, we have the Saints at the Seahawks. Who do you have going in that game?
I picked the Seahawks. I don't like that they have Geno Smith starting, but the offense for New Orleans, I feel like maybe Sean Payton has the handcuffs on too much for Jameis Winston. He doesn't want him to make too many mistakes, and playing in Seattle is never fun. I didn't look to see, but I thought weather was going to be kind of abysmal there as well. So I like Seattle. I think the home field advantage is what kind of gives it to them.
Yeah, remember the all the rain and the bomb cyclone and the atmospheric river that I talked about in my open?
Yep.
That's going to happen in Monday Night Football as well. There is a 100% chance of precipitation during the game, so it's going to be another wet one. It may make it to where it's a running game.
Yep.
where you see a lot of running the football, and if that's the case, I lean towards the Saints because I think Alvin Kamara would have the advantage in that department. So we'll see what happens. With all these bad weather games on prime time that we've been seeing recently, a couple weeks ago we had the lightning delay in LA for the Chargers game, and then
the stadium.
Yeah, which isn't technically a dome. We all found out it's just like a carport type setup.
Yep.
Because it has the open air vents or whatnot. That was pretty wild to see. And then Sunday Night Football was a rain out. Monday Night Football is going to be rained out. At what point are they going to just implement that everybody has to have a dome?
I don't know. I think a lot of people like that open air environment, though. That's part of the problem. So maybe not a dome, maybe something retractable, maybe something you can open and close. A la what the Colts. I think the Colts have a retractable ceiling. They can play open and close, something like that.
I think the Dolphins do as well. The Raiders, I think, have a retractable. So a lot of teams have moved to that, and I think that's actually part of the new guidelines for if you build a new stadium is it has to have a retractable roof.
And I think you'll see something more like that. This way, you still get that outdoor environment if it's a nice day, or the Dolphins where you go play football in September and it's still 900 degrees outside and the opposing team sits in the sun.
That is an advantage. And, these cold weather teams, the Foxborough, the Green Bays, the Chicago, Buffalo, like these teams, they thrive in these cold weather games whenever the Miami Dolphins have to go up there and play in that, or the Tennessee Titans have to go up there and play in that kind of weather or whatnot, because they're not used to it. They're not acclimated to it. And that is an advantage for the home team. Yeah, I think
part of the reason the Saints chose Jacksonville when they played Green Bay, what was it, week 1, right? It was part of the reasoning, like, hey, these guys aren't used to playing in Florida in September.
Yep, and to their point, it was about 100 degrees that day whenever they had to play. So that was a pretty strategic move on their part.
Yep.
All right, Ryan. Well, I appreciate you coming on tonight and filling in for Zach. He will be back Saturday night and again next Monday night. So we do appreciate the guys over at the Sportszilla Podcast for kind of filling his shoes while he's been out gallivanting around on vacation. One more time, just let everybody know where they can find the Sportszilla Podcast and where they can find the Sportszilla group as well.
So you can find us on Facebook, Sportszilla. We've got Twitter. We live posted on Facebook. Then you can find us on I think Spotify, Apple Podcast, downloads once we complete. I believe we're also on Twitch, if I remember correctly. I'd have to look at that one again. I know we posted on the page, so if you go over to Sportszilla Facebook, you can find us all there.
Yeah, and it's a pretty fun group to be a part of over on Facebook. Just a bunch of regular Joes talking about sports and enjoying each other's conversation and trash talk and all that stuff. And there's one guy that keeps posting his winnings from his daily bets, and he's killing it. He's constantly winning, and I keep saying, like, dude, start posting your bets before the games happen so that some of us have a chance to get in on that too. Let us get our beaks wet.
Party with you or feel your misery at the same time. It looks like you know what you're doing.
He knows what he's doing a lot more than I do. I make these bets and it's like, well, I lost again, but he's always winning, and I need to tap into that for sure.
You'll have to pick him up and put him on once a week. See what he thinks. Problem is, we do ours on Wednesday. It's not fun to bet on Wednesday.
Yeah, no real games. Maybe we need to start doing a collaborative Sunday morning show.
Oh man, we'll have to talk to Jared about that one. Maybe he's watching over there.
Maybe we'll start competing with the pregame shows for ratings.
There you go.
All right, guys. We appreciate you guys commenting along and watching with us, and make sure that you go and like and subscribe to Sportszilla Podcast. If this is your first time checking out our show, please like and subscribe it as well. And we will be back Saturday night, like I said, with Zach over on Champ to Champ, talking about all of your fantasy football needs for Week 8. And we will be back the following Monday night for another episode of the Nest Podcast. We'll see you guys later. Peace.
Thank you.